6:49, time now for the morning rush. A bill that would create an enforcement team for cannabis offenses in New Mexico is currently making its way through the Roundhouse. House Bill 10 would add law enforcement officers to the New Mexico Cannabis Control Division for the purpose of pursuing charges against people who violate the state's Cannabis Regulation Act.
We are learning more about an incident in which gunfire broke out at an Albuquerque restaurant as police tried to arrest two robbery suspects. APD says that they arrested 32-year-old Roberto Perez and 35-year-old Joshua Garcia after they stole a car and robbed multiple businesses. Both Perez and Garcia are charged with robbery and eluding a police officer.
A multi-agency task force is investigating a suicide. Yesterday, APD was called to a home near 86th and Bridge for a man threatening to shoot himself. As officers evacuated the home and began setting up a perimeter, they say they heard a gunshot from inside. They went in and found the man dead. Ryan.
And here's a live look at Santa Fe. 15 degrees right now. Light snow falling. You can see maybe a little bit of fresh snow that has fallen. A 7-mile-per-hour wind out there, making it feel like a wind chill value of 7 degrees. Dry but chilly, but will warm up and dry out more ahead.
Well, former Otero County Commissioner KRQE Griffin has until today to decide whether or not to accept the pardon that came from President Trump for his actions in the January 6th Capitol riot. Griffin was federally convicted of misdemeanor trespassing from that incident. Yesterday, Griffin told News 13 that President Trump's sweeping pardons of Capitol rioters, quote, does not sit well with him.
Meanwhile, one New Mexico lawmaker is working to stop President Trump's plan to abolish the Federal Department of Education. Trump is tasking his nominee Linda McMahon with dismantling the department of a $240 billion budget and more than 4,000 employees. New Mexico Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury argues that would only hurt most vulnerable students. Ryan.
And it's a very cold start out there. We're sitting at an air temperature of 17 in Albuquerque. 7 below in Gallup. You tied your daily record low of 8 below earlier this morning. 11 in Clayton, 3 above in Raton. We're sitting at 23 in Las Cruces, the quote-unquote warmest spot in New Mexico this morning. But will be a chilly afternoon today, but will be warming up in the short term.
One of the men caught in a multi-agency child solicitation sting is beginning his year-long prison sentence. Yesterday, 35-year-old John Michael Seagroves pleaded guilty to attempting to meet up with a minor for sex back in October. A judge sentenced him to 1 year in jail, followed by 5 years of probation.
A Los Lunas Korean War veteran has now been identified more than 70 years after he made the ultimate sacrifice. U.S. Army Private First Class Arthur Aaron Clifton was reported missing in action. That was after his unit was attacked by Chinese Communist forces near the Chosin Reservoir. Now, his fate was a mystery until last August. That is when his remains were finally identified through DNA. Clifton will be buried on January the 31st in San Antonio. Ryan.
And taking a look at traffic right now, no major accidents or slowdowns across the board, although it's getting busier out there. Taking a look at tracker heading north on I-25 near the Big I. We do notice that, look off in the distance, some passing cars, but no major accidents nor slowdowns. We'll have more updates later today.
Well, Thailand is now becoming the first country in Southeast Asia to hold legal same-sex unions. Today, the total number of couples tying the knot there could surpass 1,400. The organizers will ask Guinness World Records to recognize the unions as the world's largest number of same-sex marriage registrations to take place in a single day.
And now it's time for the 5 facts.
At number 5, we are hearing from the family of a Los Lunas Korean War veteran who has now been identified more than 70 years after he made the ultimate sacrifice. U.S. Army Private First Class Arthur Aaron Clifton was reported missing in action after his unit was attacked by Chinese Communist forces near the Chosin Reservoir. His fate was a mystery until last August when his remains were finally identified through DNA. He'll be buried on January 31st at the Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery in San Antonio.
At number 4, 2 University of New Mexico professors were recently recognized by the White House for their work in teaching and research. Associate Professor Matthew Lakin and Professor Vanessa Svila, they were awarded the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. Lakin was recognized for his work on biomedical devices and Svila for framing agency in the classroom that is allowing students to pose and study open-ended questions in the engineering field.
And at number 3, temperatures on the rise today for the Four Corners, but elsewhere a cooler day in the 20s, 30s, and 40s for most areas. Santa Fe, you're snowing a little bit this morning, not even getting to freezing. Mid-30s Albuquerque, 40s in Deming, upper 20s Alamosa, but we'll warm up and dry out in the short term ahead.
At number 2, a bill that would create an enforcement team for cannabis offenses in New Mexico is currently making its way through the Roundhouse. House Bill 10 would add law enforcement officers to the New Mexico Cannabis Control Division for the purpose of pursuing charges against people who violate the state's Cannabis Regulation Act. Currently, the CCD is limited to issuing civil fines and must refer the violations of criminal law to local and state law enforcement.
And at number 1, former Otero County Commissioner Coy Griffin is weighing whether or not to accept the pardon from President Trump for his act in the January 6th Capitol riot. Photos show Griffin climbing to the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He was federally convicted of misdemeanor trespassing. Yesterday, Griffin told News 13 that Trump's sweeping pardons of Capitol rioters, quote, does not sit well with him, given that his disorderly conduct charge was dismissed. He said he'll give his final decision to his attorney sometime today.